So, hi, I'm Dan Powers with Back to the Body, and I'm here with Pamela Matson, also of Back to the Body, and I'm going to let the other two introduce themselves, but we're here today to talk about something called the Erotic Blueprint. And this is something that's come up with these two couple, or this couple, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a second, but Pamela, I'm going to go to you first.
I'm so excited to bring this to our audience, Dan. I met Jaiya and Ian a little far back. I'm not going to date Jaiya or Ian or myself, but we've known each other a while. And about a year and a half ago, Jaiya, I'm going to use the word Jaiya, birthed this idea of the erotic blueprints. And it's so exciting and fabulous and sexy. And I think it's a way for women, because you know, we have a little female bias at Back to the Body. A bit, yeah. For women, you know, to understand core erotic themes in their life. And once you can understand your core erotic themes, your blueprint, it becomes so much easier to deal with shame, to access things that turn you on. And Dan and I thought, well, shoot, we got to get these guys on and bring women and the people who love them this information. So that you can follow the little breadcrumbs that we're going to leave you here today. And so, Ian and Jaiya, you sexy, fabulous couple, tell us all about blueprints.
All right.
Well, introduce yourselves first as well.
Yeah, we'll do that. So, thank you, Pamela. You and Dan, you're both super sexy people. We love that you've invited us on and that you're sharing all this exciting stuff with your tribe.
So before we introduce ourselves, we have a little ritual, and we're just teasing it out. I love teasing, so we might wait till like the very end to introduce ourselves, but we always start with pleasure first. It's part of our brand core value. It's part of everything we do. So I just love to take a moment with everybody who's here with us, who's watching this, and for all of us to take a moment into pleasure first. And that can be something so simple because we don't prioritize pleasure. And I see Pamela, she's already reached for something. She's
got like a pleasure device in her hand.
Cookie or a cracker or something. So maybe that's water right now. It's getting a drink of water. Maybe that's the cookie. Maybe that's just Ian's taking a breath and a stretch. So I'm going to invite you all to join me in just closing our eyes for a moment and becoming a pleasure seeker. Where is it pleasurable in your body? Maybe it's the taste of something you just ate, or maybe it's the water in your mouth, or maybe it's somewhere in your body. Maybe it's in your pussy. Maybe it's in your toes, maybe in your heart, but just find pleasure. We oftentimes go into the body and find other things, but let's seek pleasure. And take a nice big breath in and make the sound of that pleasure. Sound helps us intensify it. And I just want you to imagine that you're spreading that pleasure with the sound. So we can do that again. Breath and some sound. The pleasure starting to spread through your body. You can even use your hands to start to spread it from wherever you felt pleasure all over your body. Good. And now just notice, take a moment to notice just that little bit, that tiny bit of a couple breaths is a little bit of sound, a little bit of movement of your hands, your body. And I noticed some tingling going through my whole body, feeling more present.
And there's more ease of my breath in my body.
I'm swallowing coffee in my body. Oh, it's so good.
Good. So another deep breath and then slowly open your eyes. So now that introduction, I'm Jaiya and I love pleasure. And so I've been at this for 2 decades now, 20 years, over 20 years of being a pleasure person, being a teacher in the field of eroticism and sexuality, and I'm a somatic sexologist. So what that means is it's a body-based. I love that Pamela and Dan, you have back to the body, because it's an embodiment-based work that I've been practicing. And through all of that work is how the blueprints came to be, just noticing how people were on the table, what their bodies were responding to. Why does this person respond to this and the other person is
Turned off, right?
completely turned off? Like every single body on that table is different. Mm-hmm. What is their map? And you know, I could go on about accolades, 4 books, tons of DVDs. I speak all over the world. I've been on tons of crazy television. But I think what's more important in sharing is actually my story with Ian, and how here I was, a total and complete sex goddess. Like I knew all the techniques. I'd written all the books on the techniques. I had hundreds of techniques, and I couldn't get this man turned on. I'm the sex expert, and I can't get my own partner interested in wanting and desirous and that hot, juicy, passionate sex. We just had a baby. Any of you who are moms out there know that's like.
This is about 8 years ago that the genesis of this all began, that Jaiya was talking about.
And so we just had a baby. We were new parents. But even after that, even after my body healed, even after I was back in, there was this disconnect. And I was, and maybe you all have experienced this, we come to bed at night and there's like, okay, maybe we're going to have sex, or I hope he doesn't ask for sex, or whatever those thoughts are that are going on. And I ask for sex and I get rejected repeatedly. And I roll over to one side and he rolls over to the other side. Within a few minutes, he's snoring, but I'm crying myself to sleep at night. 1, I feel incongruent with my work. 2, I feel lost. Like, how do I bring this back? And then I start questioning. And I don't know if any of you have had that experience where you start questioning the relationship you're in, or you start questioning yourself. I'm broken. I'm wrong. I'm not attractive enough. I started taking striptease classes. That didn't do it. You know, I'm dieting. That's not doing it. I'm trying everything. And then I go to, I must be broken. He doesn't like me anymore. And then I get to the blame of he must be broken. What the heck is wrong with this guy when I know every blowjob technique under the sun? Why can't I get, like, what is going on? And so then I start threatening. I'm threatening to leave. I'm going to go find another lover. I'm all this stuff, which of course is not breeding more connection. It's breeding disconnection. And so I don't know if you want to speak at all on your end of what was going on during that time. And the good news is we have solutions. We have a totally hot, amazing, juicy, awesome sex life now.
Well, so I'm Ian, and I'm the Chief Pleasure Officer in our company together, where we're putting out this amazing work that's changing lives. And I'm also a bit of the experimentee, or, you know, you don't like the word guinea pig. I'm kind of like the test subject for all of the experiments that we do around sex and attraction and all this stuff. So out of that, on my end, we had just had a baby. Financial stress was through the roof because it was around the 2008 crash. I had my own business at the time. So I was stressed out. And we'll get to some other reasons why the connection wasn't happening there, because that leads into the erotic blueprints. But I loved her. I was attracted to her. But because of all of these other factors, I was not being able to connect with my own erotic self and find my pathway to connection and pleasure. And it was through the experimentation and starting to take things that she was discovering in her work with clients and putting it into our lives that we started to boost up that attraction and that hot juiciness that we've reclaimed in our sex life.
And here's the good news. We're going to share it with you.
Exactly.
We're going to share with you one of the things we did, the major turning point.
Can I like interject for a second?
Yeah.
You know, I think for the women who are listening, and certainly the women who are tuning in through Back to the Body or through our, one of our newsletters. I think what's important to really hear, is that you can be a sex educator. You can be a sex goddess, like whatever the heck that means. So, you can be on the outside the envy of all your friends and have a reputation of being the one that everyone should talk to. And it can totally suck in bed.
Mhm.
I think that people need to understand that,
We're real humans.
exactly, Dan.
Yeah.
You want to speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing goes on for us. I've been married for 4.5 years now, and we have similar kinds of things. We're super busy. We go to bed at night, and usually I'm the one that's exhausted. And as soon as my head hits a pillow, I'm out. I'm snoring, and she's pissed off because, like, God damn it, why aren't I able to go to sleep like that? And she can't talk to me because I'm already out. So we have the same kinds of issues, and everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to normalize, that for everybody, who says, well, who is interested in these kinds of programs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody.
Everybody. Everybody needs this.
And the thing is, like, you can start, like Jaiya was starting to point to how that stuff in our relationship was starting to turn to, like, eating the shit. Like, Jaiya was...
We call it, you can eat the shit or you can use it as fertilizer.
Right. So Jaiya was feeding me shit of, like, I'm going to find a new lover. You're not meeting I have a high libido. Where's your libido? You totally tanked. So I was eating some of that shit, and I was turning in on myself and getting smaller and being more
cautious,
tentative about, trying to come on to her when I was in the mood. And Jaiya, for you had one foot out the door, literally.
I did. And I want to point to, it only takes one person to change a relationship. In this case, it was me. I made a commitment. I didn't tell him. I made a commitment to be 100% all in, committed to changing it. And I didn't tell him for 10 months. And it radically changed everything. He had no idea what was going on, what I was doing. But that commitment that I made to no longer having a foot out the door and committing to the relationship and the sexuality and changing and doing the shifts that were necessary for me to do, the practices that were necessary for me to do to create that shift, and the understanding was vital.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have women who have been 100% all in to changing their relationship with their bodies, right? So that's who shows up at our door. Women who have decided they're all in to going deeper and further into their sexuality. How is this an additional tool that they can bring into their all in?
Awesome.
How can this adjunct their experiences at the retreats and with the work perhaps they're doing privately with Jan and I, or couples retreats or back to the body retreats? How does this tool become an amplifier?
So I think it's time to start breaking down what the blueprints are.
Okay, so let's start with just the what, and then we'll go into why this is important. But I want to start with one little why of motivation of why we're learning this. It was the major needle mover in our connection.
Okay.
I think of it like this. We all have an erotic map. We all have, and we don't know ourselves frequently. We think we may know something, or we think because we read it in some magazine, it's the way we're supposed to be. So we end up oftentimes feeling broken instead of really understanding who we are as erotic beings. And what's talked about in the culture is usually 2 of these blueprints and not the whole picture of the blueprints.
You mean Cosmo's not always right?
Cosmo and their sex technique.
No, we didn't say that. Never say
that. So I think you guys have all read those, right? Go home, do this tonight, and you're going to have this result. You go home, you try it, and it doesn't work. Well, why not? Or what we hear a lot of is the therapist said I should do this, but they're speaking to a certain blueprint. They're not speaking to your blueprint oftentimes.
And the other thing that you'll often get if you go to a therapist is that, or even a sex educator, you'll get that you're not compatible. That you're not compatible sexually or erotically with your partner. And we really look at that and we see that it's actually an opportunity to grow and expand into these other blueprints and find more erotic pathways to connection and arousal and pleasure and orgasm.
Yeah.
So it's all an opportunity.
So to me, it's not an issue of compatibility. It's an issue of opposites attract. And then how do we work with language? To me, it's like language, right? Ian, it's not compatibility. Ian speaks French and I speak Japanese. I write in beautiful calligraphy with a pen, and he's speaking French. I don't go, I'm incompatible with you because we speak different languages. I go, wait a minute. I love you. I want to learn how to speak your language. Would you be willing to speak my language? And now we are both in a place of honoring one another. So to me, this is about honoring someone and for who they are, and not going, oh, you speak French, too bad, I can't love you.
Right. So it's a lot like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs for people in the business world who are saying, not that we can't work together because we're working in this company, but how can I understand better who you are and how to interact with you? But this is just on the sexual level.
Yeah. It gets compared also a lot to the 5 love languages. So the gifts and the touch and all of that stuff as well. That's one way. Like if you're going to actually be felt by your lover and they are somebody who likes gifts, but you're always giving words of acknowledgement, they're never going to feel your love. It's just like, it's like water off a duck. So,
so imagine Ian and I, here I am coming to bed and I'm like, do you want to fuck tonight? Do you want to have sex tonight? Or I'd like touch his cock, you know, this is all one of the blueprints and it's the main one.
Funny, we're so teasing this. I'm like getting anxious, like, you gotta tell them what the blueprints are.
And then he comes.
You like the tease.
And he has that and it turns him off. It's too direct.
It's pressure. It feels like pressure. Like
pressure
I've got to
him.
Perform and I can't drop in and like languish and just relax, get to a place of relaxation from which then I can engage and connect.
And then he comes to bed and he cuddles with me.
And she's like,
and I'm like, why are we going to sleep?
Uh-huh.
But I wasn't getting that he was initiating sex. And so it was because he's speaking French, I'm speaking Japanese. Actually, in that case, I'm speaking American English from down
really
south.
Get people confused.
So let's give them the blueprint. So are we ready? Are we ready to give them to them?
Ready.
Okay.
Let's give it to them.
So the first blueprint, and it's the one I was calling Japanese, this beautiful calligraphy, if it were a language, is the energetic. An energetic is someone who's turned on by anticipation, space, tease, being able to yearn and long for it. Mm-hmm. So it's energetic, loves touch that maybe might even isn't on the body. So that I can feel more than if he goes like that. I feel sensation here. I feel his skin on my skin.
And sometimes it turns into, for an energetic, it can be too much and it can lead to shutting down.
I just shut down because it's too much on my body.
You're in my space and we haven't had a chance to merge and connect through the distance in the space.
So the energetic in the positive aspect has orgasmic superpowers. These are people who can think themselves to orgasm. You don't even need to touch them. I had a client who learned how to turn energetics on once and he said, I gave her 9 orgasms and 6 were before I even got her panties off. And that's the power of an energetic. When they're fully in their positive, they have potential to have just orgasmic bliss, staying in orgasmic states, orgasms from just a Skype session, you know, like they don't even need to go into body touch. On the shadow side, and Ian talked about this, is the hypersensitivity that they experience can cause them to have short circuiting and shutdown. So if you go into an energetic and you're all like this, it's too much for their nervous system to process. So the shadow side or the challenge is you go for a clitoris right away, it's too much, too quick, too fast, and they short circuit. Or maybe energetics, any of you who may be resonating with this, you're in the middle of sex and all of a sudden all your turn on goes away. And you don't understand what just happened, where it went, and then you don't speak up about it. And so another shadow side of the energetic is that we have a hard time with boundaries. We have a hard time speaking, no, you're too close. Wait a minute, we need to stop. We need to slow down. We need to pause a moment so I can feel you again. And so we can tend to abandon ourselves in sex where we don't speak up and we just let things happen and we let things override and then we numb out and our bodies create resentment.
And the energetic can be the most misunderstood of the blueprints because there's so little social programming for what the energetic needs. So the energetic exists in this place of, well, how can you be turned on by me being over here? And then
because that's not what they've seen in a porn video, which is how most people learn how to have sex.
Exactly. So it exists in this kind of like otherworldly terrestrial like thing of energy and connection through space and distance. And so that's another reason why an energetic might shut down, they just don't even have a language to talk about it and make
Or
themselves
say what their
understood.
needs are.
Yeah.
And then there's a hierarchical thing too. I had it for many, many years, which is I'm enlightened. My chakras are all like good, and you're eating hamburgers and watching television and porn. You naughty, naughty person, you. And I'm better. There's like an I'm better than attitude that can sometimes happen, which then makes, and oftentimes energetics attract their total opposite, which is one of the other ones we'll talk about, which are the people who love to watch erotica and the people who love penetration and naked bodies and orgasm. And so they will tend to put shame on their partner as less than, not good enough. Why are you objectifying me? I hear these words come out a lot from a person who is in the energetic blueprint. So those are a couple of them. There's more, it's in depth, but we'll go, you want to move to yours?
Yeah.
So I'm primarily energetic when I'm not in a relationship. So what this means is with my relationship with Ian, I have a different blueprint. So any of you singles out there, you may be different when you're dating someone than when you actually get into the deeper relationship with them. I'm very energetic. It takes people a very long time to get into my sphere where I feel safe being cuddly or being touched or having that like up in my, what I call up in my grill kind of like relationship, because I want to yearn and long for you. I have relationships that I've been yearning for 20 years and I love them. Like I love being, like it turns me on so much to not have it given to me. Like I love, love, love it. So that energetic, and I have all those superpowers of I can have orgasms so easily, but I can short circuit out in some instances, not as much anymore. Now I get more afraid.
I'm getting aroused. I don't know what's going on. It's all the talk about anticipation, yearning, waiting. Yeah, keep going.
I'm starting to sweat.
Yeah.
Woo! So this is one thing I love, is just to check in with your bodies. You know, how do we determine the blueprint isn't just from what I'm saying, but check in with your body. Like, is this starting to resonate with you? Is hearing me talk starting to turn you on when I talk about some of this? And where do you feel in your body? It's one thing that we're always bringing it back to the somatic, to the body, as you say, back to the body.
Back to the body.
So, okay, so the sensual. The sensual is one of Ian's primary blueprints. You have more than one, so it's almost like a map that you create from these 5 that we're talking about. And so here's Ian at night coming up to me and snuggling, and he always says, we have this conversation very frequently still today. He'll be like, I just want sex to unfold.
I want to meander my way.
I want to meander. I want to like massage, and we find our way through the deliciousness of all the touching and closeness and like the dance of it all.
And the
right?
outcome and the goal of orgasm is not even in that first part of the conversation. It's all about being able to connect and just feel her and just be able to like, and like I would even like to take a nap for 20 minutes and then wake back up in each other's arms and then, you know, begin from there. It's just languishing.
I see Pamela taking big, deep breaths.
Okay, so I think I'm going to be every blueprint.
Yeah, well, there is
one that holds them
multiple
all.
languages.
I think I may be every blueprint. So what you're talking about with Ian, I call 4 a.m. sex. Because I call that the 4 a.m. booty call. So that's when I'm half awake and the bodies are just rocking into each other. You kind of in this half dream state, Miranda into lovemaking, and then you can fall back asleep again, maybe.
Yep, and then come back into it.
And so that I like.
So sensuals are all about the senses. So they're food. They're touch, they're yummy, wet.
Often a sensual will be dressed in, you know, different textures, furry things.
They like feathers and
things.
Yeah, I think Pamela, you even have feather earrings on.
So Ian's a sensual.
He is a sensual.
One of my blueprints.
And you're an energetic.
I'm mostly, energetic, and we'll get to the one I'm primarily with him.
Okay.
See how he wants to be all up in my grill and I want a long. He wants to be close and I want space, and how that can create then a disconnect in our initiating and also in our turn on. So he's all like rubbing on me and all like cuddly, and I'm like, well, I can't feel you. I just feel you rubbing on me. So we have like that disconnect happening. And then in the shadow side, and maybe some of you relate to this, is I can't keep my mind chatter from stopping.
For the sensual. And the environment can completely throw me off.
The pillows are yelling at me. The music is yelling at me. It's not right.
It's too
I gotta
loud.
get up and fix
It's too
it.
soft. It's the wrong song for the moment.
Your breath smells.
Yeah.
So the piece of being close to orgasm, and then all of a sudden the mind kicks in, and the mind starts saying, I hope I'm okay down there. Oh my God, it's taking a very long time for me to have an orgasm. Oh my goodness.
Am I doing the right thing for her? Do I need to change the technique that I'm doing?
What are her body responses doing? You're checked out of your own pleasure, and you're into the other person. You're worried about the other person. That often shows up for male bodied humans. So we have this sort of orgasm can become elusive for a sensual, where you get close and then it kind of goes away and you're like, oh my God, I'm almost there.
I gotta say that even dropping into sex can become elusive for a sensual, because it's just not, if I'm not relaxed, I'm not gonna be there. It just feels like pressure. It's something else that I've got to do. I'm not connected. So I can even get to the state of being able to be available for sexual connection, let alone get to orgasm. If I'm
I just took the test this morning, and it said that I was sensual as well. And one of the things that I notice is I'll go in the morning and I'll lay down with Elizabeth and we'll cuddle, but then after half an hour, my mind's kind of, okay, I've got to get to work. My mind kicks into gear, and I've got to move on. That's kind of what you're talking about there.
Yep. So that's one piece that can, and you don't have to have the challenges of the blueprints. So just know you can have all the positives. Awesome. You don't have, like at this point, I have very few of the shadows. And it's because I've cultivated and healed and all of the things that we do around the shadow sides of the blueprints. So another one is being afraid of mess. Ian, when he first met me, didn't like mess. I was an ejaculator. I couldn't ejaculate around him because I was like, I knew he was squeamish about sweaty, messy, goopy sex.
The goop that comes along with sex.
So those are some of the sensual pieces. Let's move to the next one, which is sexual. So the third, I hope everybody's writing this down. So energetic was one, sensual is the second. The third one is your sexual. I am primarily a sexual in my relationship with Ian. Once I get in relationship with somebody, I could have sex 5 times a day. My own relationship with my body is as a sexual. I could self-pleasure 5 times a day, maybe 10. I could have lots of orgasms. I love nudity. I want penetration. I'm more turned on by penetration than I am by pussy petting or erotic massage stuff. I want to get it in. I want to have my orgasm, and I want the certainty that that is going to happen.
Certainty of the orgasm is pretty important to the sexual.
So the sexual is turned on by nudity, penetration, orgasm, visual arousal, the act of intercourse. And superpowers are that they can bring fun and joy into the sexual experience. It's simple, so there's a simplicity to the sexual, which is just like, I'm simple. Get hard, stick it in, chop, chop, let's get to the orgasm. Like, that's how I am very much wired. And we actually had this joke, like it was last week. We were at an event. We had like 20 minutes to have sex. And I went into Ian and I said, okay, get it hard, chop, chop. We got 20 minutes. like that kind of level. And of course, this is like a huge turn off. And I still approach from my own blueprint, knowing, like I know this, and I still do it from my own blueprint where I initiate sex with him, or I just want to touch his cock. Like I can't keep my hand off of his cock, and I just want to be touching it. And he's like annoyed to all living hell by it, because he's like, what? Because it's in the most inappropriate situations, when we're driving, or when, I'm about to go on stage, or like before this webinar. It just brings me joy.
I knew I should have turned the screen on sooner.
So this, and we've learned now, we joke about it. Now he offers up his cock before we get on the webinar. He offers up his cock before we get on stage. He says, okay, we're in the car, we're driving. I know this will bring you joy. Now I'm going to offer it to you. And so we now have a language and communication around, because we have this understanding. Shadow side of the sexual. we focus too much on the end goal. We want to get to the orgasm. We need to have the erection. We need to have the turn on. And that limits our sexuality in a very big way, in that because I'm so focused on the end goal, my definition of sex or successful sex is limited. And therefore, if one of those things goes away, it means that we've failed. And so I can easily go into, well, we kissed for an hour, but we didn't really have sex. Or I never got wet. Or you never got erect. So that just means like, this isn't successful.
Right. And I think as a society, we are not taught, my thing is arousal.
Mm-hmm.
We're not taught to value arousal. We're not taught to value what I like to call the simmer.
Uh-huh.
That the simmer is sex.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of redefining what it is. What is sex? Is it the coming? Or is that, is it really, really all that's before the coming that we're showing up for? And maybe you feel like dessert, or maybe you don't feel like dessert.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a whole reprogramming, Jaiya. And it's very hard because we've been taught. We haven't been taught about arousal. We haven't been taught about simmering. No one's teaching us that that's sex.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so there we go into failure mode if we're not getting, the optional dessert.
But it also sounds like if that's your erotic blueprint, that's just how you're wired. So that's what you want. And I think one of the values of having this erotic blueprint is if you know that you're sexual, but your partner's sensual, then you can step into the sensual to support them, and they can step into, it's kind of like the whole, Mars and Venus thing. Learn how to speak that language so that they know how to interact with you in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the biggest challenges that I'll experience with her sexual is that if she's in full sexual mode, there's a missing of the journey. There's no point of doing all of that stuff. Like, why are we bothering to be sensual? Or what is this energetic thing? Why are you complicating things so much? There's another blueprint that's another one of our primaries, which just takes way too much time for her. And it's part of so the sexual is often, like a pure sexual is often wired really to see the dessert as the point. All the other stuff is unnecessary. And then if they're not getting it,
and in defense of the sexual here, because it is a wiring, and I think those of us who really teach the other blueprints strongly, because it is culture. Our culture is a sexual culture. It's what we've been taught.
Sexual and sensual.
And so it's how men are especially expected to be.
Right.
Which we found from surveying now 30,000 people, that's not true. Most men are not purely sexuals. But in defense of it, for us, sex is a stress reliever. Sensuals need to relieve stress to have sex. Sexuals have sex because then everything is right in the world. It is literally like a need. It is like eating. It's like, it is such an intense need. It's how we feel loved. It's how we feel fed. It's how we thrive in the world. And it helps us in so many areas to have even if it's just like 5 minutes of penetration, an orgasm, to have those orgasms throughout the day, like as a foundation of our entire lives, brings us incredible aliveness and just so much joy. And everything is right in the world when we are being fed in our sexuality. So,
can I ask you a question, Jaiya?
Yeah.
So, of course, we're all listening to this and projecting our own selves.
Yes.
How does this fit for me? Am I this or am I that? And so I'm listening to you, and I know that, especially if I'm in an intensely erotic situation, it's really important for me to have bites of the erotic throughout the day, which is not necessarily an orgasm. So here I am. I'm back to simmering and arousal. I'm back to my simmering and arousal game, okay, which look like, what are some of the games people play with sex? Edging, or, teasing, anticipation, yearning. So if I have that throughout the day, and it could be 5 minutes or a moment or a second, all is right with the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to you. It's not necessarily about the orgasm, but the pattern is the same. Would that still qualify as sexual? Or does it have to be the orgasm?
I think for the sexual, the orgasm and the penetration is really important. So there has to be certainty that eventually you're going to get there. So for me, if we were just doing that all day long and simmering, and it would drive me freaking crazy, I would need to know that I would go to there. I would go to Ian and go, wait a minute, we've been simmering all freaking day long. You need to fuck me tonight. Like,
and you know.
I know somewhere in there, I'm going to have certainty that we will have a cock inside of me and there will be an orgasm.
I get it.
Then everything's right in the world.
Check.
Check. Yes. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And this is Ian's primary blueprint. He's really owning now, just in the last few months, that this is his primary blueprint. So do you want to talk about it?
I'm excited.
Yeah. So my primary blueprint is the kinky blueprint. And the kinky blueprint, you know, along with kink can come a good heaping of shame.
So notice what just came up in your body or what you went to. Did you just imagine like dark edge stuff?
Dungeons, or
where did you go when we say
and
kink?
Books and all sorts of, you know, the BDSM world of kink.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Sweet. So
Ian just got excited.
I got excited. Getting a little,
His cheeks just got red.
little heat in my back. So kink is my primary, and I would say, and then there's the world of kink is super vast. So kink doesn't necessarily mean the whips and chains and, you know, hooks hanging from the ceiling. It certainly could. That could be your turn on. But the way that we frame it is that kink is anything that is taboo for you. So you could be used to a life of sex missionary position. So having sex doggy style is total kink for you. It's completely the edge of your edge of what's appropriate sexually. And so then we have a couple of different types of kink that we see it as. We see that there is the psychological kink, and that is somebody who's turned on by the power games and the mind games and like power dynamics in the relationship and role play, that kind of stuff. And then there's the sensation-based kink. And I have some of the psychological. I certainly can go there, but I would say the route to my pleasure is really sensation-based. And for me, it's not about being spanked or anything like that, but I like constriction. I like ropes. I like the hold down, the wrestling of sex. So I would say I weigh more towards the physiological or sensitive than the psychological. And then, of course, everybody's pretty much familiar with the submissive and the dominant. I would say I'm a switch in those areas. Sometimes I totally surrender in the submissive, and sometimes I love playing the dominant.
So he is a big kink, and me, this wasn't even in the blueprint model. If this tells you anything about my awareness around kink and kinky people, I denied it. I had the energetics and all of the other ones except for kink. And actually my tantra-y days and my energetic would have judged this in the past. So if I go back 20 years, I had a boyfriend who was really into pain. And I would cry over his bruises and go, what is the matter with you? I need to heal you. You know, like that. So that's the energetic shadow can show up with the kinky in that piece. And so finding out my partner was kinky was a whole new world. And I'll say, I'll never stop learning as a sex educator. And I think that that's something that points to mastery in a sex educator, is someone who will never stop learning. And this is my realm of learning. I will spend the rest of my life learning in the kinky arena. There's so much to freaking learn. And I'm still learning ropes, and I'm finding, where is my turn on in the kinky? So for instance, I find turn on through energetics and sensuality with rope, because what I just want to do is get him tied up so we can fuck. You know, like I know tying him up will get him an erection and then get there because of my sexual, right? But finding my access into it has been a really important key piece. And so the kinky side, though, on the other side, the shadow side, is shame. Deep, deep, deep shame of the kinky turn on. So Ian and I were in a relationship for six years before I discovered that he was kinky.
I would say the signs were all around. There was not an absolute hiding of my kink. Some of the toys that I had when we first got in a relationship, definite indicator. I had cuffs. I had, some gear.
They were furry, sensual cuffs.
They were furry, sensual cuffs. I'm doing in my other blueprint. And the thing is, it was there, but once we started to play with it, Jaiya wrote a book called
Cuff Tied
Satisfied. And for the research for that book, we did a 40-40 switch. So for the first 40 days, Jaiya dominated me for 40 days straight. And then we took a 10-day break.
We actually called Pamela because he was having trouble dominating me because I was a total brat. So Pamela coached Ian a little bit.
Yeah. Then we flipped it for 40 days where I dominated Jaiya. And this was the deep dive into just understanding how far my kink could go. Because Jaiya kept searching for my edges when she was dominating me, and she wasn't finding them. Like she said, she would hit a place where she was doing some spanking or something like caning. That kind of
caning. I was caning him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's cool. Turn me on." And I'm crying.
So after our scene work, I would be like, "Oh, cool, that was fun." All energized. She'd be weeping, and she'd need the aftercare. It's the dominant. And aftercare is like after you've gone through a big cathartic experience as a sub or even a dom, you often need to like re-regulate your body. You can actually go through like big swings of heat and cold, and you need to take care after you've done a really big scene. But she was the one who needed the aftercare, not me.
Yeah. So in the kinky blueprint, the shame there, and Ian kept asking, why am I like this? Why am I turned on by all this weird stuff? Why? And finally someone looked at us and said, stop trying to figure out why and just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why ask why? I think that's really wonderful, is the why ask why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know why. And so I've heard about 4 blueprints. Can you name them again for me?
Sure. Energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky.
And so, Dan, I'm curious, like, what do you think the benefit is for women who are at Back to the Body or doing work with us to check out blueprints, to take a quiz? There's a quiz, right?
Yep, eroticbreakthrough.com.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, you can go to eroticbreakthrough.com.
And we'll have links posted on here as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Dan, as a not just as a director of Back to the Body, but as a practitioner at Back to the Body, who's working with our women who are coming in for their first retreat, maybe for their 5th retreat. Why do you think it might be beneficial for them and for you as their practitioner to know their blueprint?
Well, it's exactly like they said. If I understand better who they are sexually and what they're desiring, then I can provide that for them. Now, I'm not going to be fucking my clients, but there's things that we can do to support that. And whatever it is, if they're more sensual, then we can provide sensual touch. If they're into the sexual, then we can bring on that cagey, the erotic sexual energy for them as well, so that we're getting them to the place that they want to get to. So I think it's hugely valuable. It'll cut to chase, because so many women can't tell us what it is that they like, what they want. So if they understand from this blueprint, they do this survey, this questionnaire, and then bring that to us, then I know how to meet them.
Got it.
So this maps exactly onto how it's effective in relationship, like we're talking about, being able to bring it to your relationship, bringing it to your dating, bringing it to how you communicate sexually. This is not, we're giving you like just the surface of a really complex, beautiful system that gives incredibly accurate and specific languaging of turn on and arousal. For each of the blueprints, they each have their own language, their actual spoken language, their physiological language, their energetic signature. So each of them have a way of communicating. And the more you can get into that map of arousal and being able to express it, the better you're going to be able to get your needs met from your partner or yourself.
Or meet their needs, or have compassion. So another little funny story with Ian and I, he's energetically over my vulva. He's like doing this over my vulva, like sending all this energy. And he likes to play, he found energetic access through kink. So he likes to tease me and then play with not actually touching my vulva, even though I'm like, oh, please, please, please. you know? And so he's there, he's doing this, and all of a sudden he just gets up and leaves. And for an energetic, that's like taking a socket out of the light switch, you know, like the lamp socket out. And I'm like, what's he doing? And he goes over and he's fixing the music. And I go, what are you doing? And he goes, it's just my sensual. His sensual can't be present with me and give me pleasure if he's distracted by the music. He gets up, he fixes the music. I can laugh now instead of being pissed at him. So there's just a whole new level of understanding, even just the way we initiate sex, the way that we communicate with one another, and the honoring and compassion for one another that we have now. Yeah.
So I'm remembering one other.
Another blueprint?
I want to talk about one more piece of the kinky shadow, because I gave 2 for each, and I don't want to leave the kinkies out. I don't want anybody to feel left out, unless it's a punishment for the kinkies. I don't know, have they been bad, Pamela?
Oh, I've been very bad.
Oh, maybe we shouldn't. I'll mention it very briefly, which is just that you can only get one pathway to pleasure because of denying it for so long. It becomes your only route. Jack Morin, in his book, The Erotic Mind, talks about a man who can only get turned on when he wears a yellow raincoat. And that then can become a challenge when you're dating or you're trying to find other ways to be pleasured. I believe we should have many pathways to pleasure, not just one that becomes a rut, that becomes a crave. So that's just one little other area of kinky that as soon as Ian starts talking about his fantasy or talking about a certain thing that really turns him on in the kinky blueprint, we start playing it has less of a charge, and he gets more variety in his sexual fantasy and play. So that's one piece. Pamela, do you have more? Are you ready to go to shapeshifters?
Well, yeah, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's so it's the one that I identify with the most is the shapeshifter, and you haven't talked about that blueprint yet. Because I listen to you talk about all the blueprints, and I go, that's me. Okay, that's me. So can you talk about the shapeshifter a little bit?
So the shapeshifter is someone who's turned on by everything. It's
a little embarrassing.
They want it all.
Pamela, you just said an interesting word. Did you just say the word embarrassing?
Yes, even for me. It's like, I'm the little piggy. Like I'm the little piggy girl who gets turned on. Like, I do get turned on by bend over, drop your pants, spread your legs, I'm gonna fuck you. I do get turned on by dreamy, don't talk, just, 4 a.m. Let's dream our way into our bodies coming together. All the things, not everything you guys talked about, but a lot of the elements of each blueprint got me like going, me too. That felt like, once again, I'm too much.
Well, the too much.
That's all the shadow pieces of the
shapeshifter.
So let's talk about the superpowers, and then we'll talk about the shadows. So superpowers of the shapeshifter is they can take more pleasure than I've seen out of anything. I'm not a shapeshifter. I'm a shapeshifter by work in that I can give all the blueprints, but I'm not a true shapeshifter. Even though I've been doing this for many years, shapeshifters can I would be so overwhelmed and short-circuited with everything that a shapeshifter can take. I'm in awe that they can take as much pleasure, and I'm a little envious that they can take the pleasure. It's like I can lick the ice cream and smell it a little, but I can't eat a whole pint and still be hungry. A shapeshifter can
voracious appetite.
Voracious, and I'm in awe and a little envious that my mouth is watering talking about it, because I want to eat the whole smorgasbord too. And so and then they can also bring it. So a shapeshifter can bring it to every single blueprint. So if your partner is a shapeshifter, they can bring whatever you need, because they can speak every single language. They are the master.
They can become the masters of eroticism.
They because they can take it all, because they love it all, because they want it all, because they desire it all. And you can take it all at the same time. I don't know how that happens in a human body. That it can all just be like the whole pile of everything can
tied
happen
down
all
to
at
the
once.
table, hands, 5 hands hovering over you, soft furry mitt going over you, cock in the vulva, just all at once.
Okay.
So
and then you're saying more.
Yes. That we were only been going for 2 hours.
And you're tired? We just got started. Don't leave me up here.
So, you know what's interesting? So Dan's my practice partner, and he's my co-facilitator, teacher. So we share erotic energy together. So I'm curious about this. So Dan, you're saying that you're energetic? You kind of feeling certain about that?
No, I'm sensual.
Sensual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say, us practitioners, we have the ability to be shapeshifter because we're practitioners of it, because we're giving to different people. But we're going to go back to our primary blueprint. It's where we're resourced. We're going to go back to it. It doesn't mean that everybody can't learn to be a shapeshifter or give in shapeshifter. It's just that we have a signature, you know, and my signature is energetic sexual. And Dan's might be sensual. Ian's is kinky sensual. He's totally fully developed into energetic. So he has total energetic ability at this point and is working on sexual now. And so we're not stuck. If anything, our blueprint shows us where we're limited and where we can expand into and grow into. We're not stuck with where we're at. We can gain more vocabulary, just like we can learn a language.
In fact,
And I would say that I meet my clients where they're at. So kind of like you're talking about the shapeshifter, but for me personally, when I'm in my downtime and at home, sensual is where I'm at. I like the touch, I like laying and caressing and cuddling, and if it develops into sex, great, and if it doesn't, that's okay too.
Yep, I feel you.
They're relating, and this breaks the myth that all men are sexual, right? We think, oh, men aren't into just like cuddling or whatever. So I didn't think Ian was initiating sex when he's cuddling with me. I didn't know. I had to, because also my style of initiating is, why is he not touching my pussy if he wants sex? Why is he not like finding his erection up against me? So the short circuit of the messaging. And then I want to speak to the shadow of the shapeshifter, because Pamela pointed it out so beautifully. I'm embarrassed that I want this much. I'm too much. I've been told my whole life that I'm too much.
Too loud.
I'm too loud. I'm too big.
Too demanding.
I'm too complex. All of that gets wrapped up in the shadow of the shapeshifter. And then another piece is, I'm shapeshifting to please everybody else because I know how. Because it's easy for me to shapeshift to be.
Oh, absolutely. That's my total story. You know, is that I will personally shapeshift.
Yep.
What is needed at the moment, which is great for a sex educator.
Yeah.
Life can be, you know, satisfying on some level and a drag.
Yeah, you're giving up your own needs, the depth of your own needs to please.
So this is so amazing, I think, for our audience, for the women who are watching. And, you know, there's a piece that you two have shared back and forth that I think is wonderful. I wrote this morning, enthusiasm and desire is a practice. Enthusiasm and desire is a practice. And what you are in relationship. And I think what you two are modeling so beautifully for everybody, the understanding that you can bring enthusiasm and desire to each other and practice the blueprint of the other and learn the different, and then you bring, it may not be your personal turn on. If you're willing to bring desire and enthusiasm to each other, and be partners in pleasure. And I think that's really beautiful. And I think something that our women, are you watching, women? Maybe there's a guy in there who's tuned in. We're offering you a great opportunity to adjunct to your work with us at Back to the Body, is to take this quiz and find out your blueprint. And then, you know, our practitioners know the blueprints. So you'll be able to take your blueprint with you into session. You'll be able to practice this. You'll be able, if you're in partnership, You're going to be able to do this with your partner and bring this idea of enthusiasm and desire and practice to your relationship by knowing this roadmap. I think it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's hugely valuable. So tell us a little bit about the quiz. They go to this website and they take the quiz. How long does it take to do?
It's about 15 questions.
No,
There.
it'll be 24. We're actually redoing the quiz at the moment, and the new quiz will be, I think, 24 questions. But they're all really quick. It's just you ask the question.
A-B.
There's A, B. Like what's
It's like going to the eye doctor.
yeah
A or B.
A, B. And
Okay.
at the quiz, you'll get a percentage. Like I'm 54% shapeshifter, or I'm 54% kinky, 24% sensual, all the way down the line. Because like we're discovering here, each of us has a primary, have probably a secondary, maybe a tertiary, and it goes on down the line. And then shapeshifter, you may come out like 100% shapeshifter or very close to it.
Okay.
And then what you'll get, everyone will get is a video. And the video tells them more about their blueprint, some of the things we've discussed, but a little bit more in depth and a little bit more of us sharing on that video. And then a whole video sequence because of the next steps. So I want to give them just a couple next steps. They know the 5 blueprints. I think you're all seeing the value. Maybe you've had an aha about why a relationship in the past was struggling sexually, or why you're currently might be in that place, or why things are working really great. Because sometimes it's like, or you're discovering more about who you are so you can start to communicate that. The next step, now that you know the blueprint, is learning how to feed the blueprint. How does your specific blueprint feel fed? What kinds of touch? What kinds of activities outside of the bedroom? How do you like to be seduced? How do you seduce? What's that whole style? That's called feeding the blueprint. And then we have speaking the blueprint. Ian spoke to this, which is what is the language of the blueprint?
The literal words as well as the physiology.
The body
of
language.
connection. Body language is going to turn on the sensual, the energetic, the kinky.
And then the piece on healing the blueprint, healing. So healing is the shadow. So if you're resonating with any of the shadows, how do we heal those pieces? Like for me with the energetic, I couldn't hardly even go in public without getting overwhelmed. Like crowds were like a worst nightmare. How do I gauge my level of sensitivity? Or how do I speak my boundaries if saying my boundaries is really, really scary for me as an energetic because they feel so, crazy. That I need so much space. Mm-hmm. How do I speak that? It's still hard for me. Or how do I speak up in a moment? So those healing aspects. And then the fourth piece being expanding. So after we heal, we expand. We move into, now I've got my blueprint down. I'm fed in my blueprint. I know my blueprint. How do I expand now into a partner? Or if I'm dating, how do I be able to speak all of them? Because I don't know who the love of my life is going to be. And they could be a shapeshifter or a kinky. How do I then have the ability to speak all of the blueprints, essentially becoming a bit of a shapeshifter, or what I call baby shapeshifters, which is where we can speak all of them, but maybe we can't receive all. Like for me, it's easier to give in all of them, but I can't receive all of them. So I'm not there yet.
Yeah, it's also just becoming an erotic artist, so that you can paint with any brush. You have the language to speak all of the languages of the blueprints. So you have the ability to move into pleasing, honoring your lover because you now know how to turn them on.
So when they go take the quiz, they'll get a video more about their blueprint, but they're also going to get a series where they see me working with people. So you'll see me working with an energetic and seeing how am I seducing, how am I playing with an energetic, seeing me working with a sensual. I'm working with Ian in one of the little kinky bits. So there's videos and demonstrations that they will all get, and it's all just for free. So if you go take the quiz, you get all of that absolutely for free, and then we'll tell you more about how you can go deeper into learning this system.
Okay. And then you've got a workshop coming up as well, don't you?
Yes, we always have workshops going on. It seems like we teach a lot of workshops. So we do have a workshop in October. If we're watching this in 2017, we do have a workshop in October, at the end of October. That's our next one that would be coming up when the time everybody's watching
You
this.
may be watching this and it's a couple days away. We're going to release this. But we have, it's called Path to Passion. Intention is to do another one in 2018. So, you take the quiz, you also want to whitelist our email, because our emails can be kind of sexy, and don't make it through spam filters.
We know, being sex educators, we get kicked off Facebook. We have a hard time getting our stuff through, so make sure you whitelist it so that you get our communication.
So we'll stay in touch with you, and we're always throwing out tidbits about the blueprints and how you can take this stuff and apply it deeper into your life.
Great.
Yeah.
This is really sexy.
We
like
like it
sexy.
being sexy.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I can see how I can apply this in my relationship for myself, as well as in my work, and the women that I'll be working with. If they were to do this, that'd be really helpful for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see how this is going to be beneficial for us.
Awesome.
It's a great, go ahead, Pamela.
I was just going to say, so call to action back to the body beauties, all of you that are on our list who are tuning in, know that this is something that Back to the Body endorses, that we think is a useful tool,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're encouraging you to check this out. So if you made it all the way through this video, before you move on to the next thing in your life, could you take 15 minutes, guys? About 15 minutes?
Well, the quiz will take them 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Take the extra 3 minutes and click on that and find out your blueprint. Please take it with you to the next time you're with our team at Back to the Body, and check out the program that Jaiya and Ian are offering through Blueprints. We think it's a great investment and an enhancement, a tool. I'm finding it useful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, us too. We'd be lost. We'd be separated. We'd be single parents at the moment had we not really taken this deep
And
into our
applied it.
relationships.
I think that's the important thing. Knowledge is one thing, information is one thing, but putting it into practice, that's something we've been very committed to. And Pamela, you pointed to the importance of practice. You've got to take what you learn and put it into action, put it into practice, and we practice it daily.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that we do with our clients, do with people who have jumped in deeper with us, is giving those practices, and they're really pleasurable practices. It's like we've created ways, because we had so much disconnection, we created ways to create something called Sexy Sex Lab, ways of dropping in with each other where we could get past criticism and we could just get into discovery, like getting information about how to connect, as opposed to like, we've got to get it right. Mm-hmm. So we could get into the sandbox of love and be like, oh, well, hey.
I mess up all the time. I still, initiate in my sexual blueprint.
She still misses the signal of me coming and cuddling with her. It's like, hey, maybe something could happen here.
So we have to practice, and that's the beauty. We get to practice. It's not a have to. Like I get to bring more pleasure into my life through this. So it's so important.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
We love everything you're doing.
Awesome. Well, we will see you guys on the backside, and look forward to everybody who takes the quiz and brings that to us so that we know how to work with you as well. Last words, Pamela?
Absolutely. No, Mike, I have no last words. I'm a little from Mug's.
I'm going to hang up right now because you all heard it, right?
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well,